faz gesto aí. Hello. Hello, dear friends. This is Bia Labate from Brazil. We are in Belo Horizonte, a traditional state, the capital of Minas Gerais, in the University PUC. It's a Catholic university. It's really pretty. Maybe we can see a little bit around.
Voltou.
Hey!
We're back.
We're back. So we are here in Belo Horizonte in the conference of Abramd, and I'm here with my dear friend, colleague, mentor, old-time buddy, Edward MacRae, with whom I shared many adventures, including many ayahuasca rituals back in the day. And he's a big reference for all of us, a pioneer in the field. Edward, maybe you can talk a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Edward MacRae. It's a Scottish name, but I was born in Brazil. My mother was Brazilian, my father was Scottish. But I've been living here all my life, and I'm very interested in Brazilian things. And one of the Brazilian subjects that most interests me is the religious use of ayahuasca. Here in Brazil we have 3 well-established traditional churches. Tradition here in Brazil is very, very short. I mean, these churches are about 60 years old, and they're already traditional. But anyway, I'm very interested in the ritual use of ayahuasca. And one of the interesting things is that now in Brazil this is becoming a hot topic. When we started these Abramd conferences, I used to have to talk about harm reduction for ayahuasca in order to talk about ayahuasca, because they were only interested in the clinical aspects of the drug question. Nowadays, we have a mainly sociological, anthropological view of the drug question here. And there are lots of people talking about ayahuasca, and there are very few people talking about the clinical aspects, which before used to be the main topic.
Tell the audience what we're doing here.
Yeah, I just want to tell people how funny it is for me to speak in English with Edward, because we never speak English, we always speak Portuguese. It's a kind of new... yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Edward, we are in the Abramd conference, so we had a whole day here about ayahuasca. We have a lot of research happening here. I was wondering, you participated in the process of trying to recognize ayahuasca as cultural heritage. Can you give a short overview of what's going on in this regard in Brazil?
Yes, well, for us this is very important, because ayahuasca, although it is officially the religious use of ayahuasca, although it is officially recognized, ayahuasca still suffers very strong stigmatization, and people still think that ayahuasca is just another hallucinogen. And so, for us to have ayahuasca, the ayahuasca traditions recognized as a Brazilian national heritage, then this will give extra strength to the ayahuasca users in Brazil. However, it's a very complicated process.
Jump in, so people, you have to remember that you all in the US and Europe, you say, well, ayahuasca is traditional in South America and ayahuasca is legitimate in South America. That is not really the case. Like, it's traditional in some bubbles, in some environments, but in larger society, it is still pretty much stigmatized.
Most of society doesn't really understand ayahuasca, because ayahuasca is only recently, ayahuasca use only recently has spread around Brazil. It used to be confined to a tiny state way out in the far furthest west in the state of Acre. which there was a joke, people said that it actually doesn't even exist. But anyway, nowadays you have a lot of people taking ayahuasca, but it is still a tiny minority, often sort of middle class, intellectuals, artistic people who are themselves seen as a bit strange by the majority.
People like us, let's say.
People like us, strange as anything.
Anthropologist,
Hardly blame them.
vegetarian, gay, urban, left wing.
Yeah.
I mean, outside the Amazon. So you were saying, how is that process going on?
Well, it is a complicated process because there are lots of different actors involved in the story. And the whole process was begun by these traditional, as I said, churches from the state of Acre. However, and the reason that they began this is simply to sort of strengthen certain parts of a sort of quarreling group of ayahuasca users. You know, the ayahuasca users all sort of, they love ayahuasca, but they all speak ill of other ayahuasca users.
You mean the internal field of ayahuasca churches is a kind of...
Totally split.
Okay.
And people hurling horrible insults at each other and trying to disqualify the others, you know. So people think that they are the only ones who know the correct use of ayahuasca. And everyone else is wrong and is possibly damned and heretical and, you know, so certain views which are almost medieval. Anyway, so one group is trying to disqualify another group. So they say that they are the original traditional ones and the others are sort of deviants in some way or other. That is the idea that started this desire to have ayahuasca recognized as a national heritage. Because some people wanted, the ones who started the whole thing wanted to say that their way was right and a whole lot of other people who are wrong. Now,
yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. Now that doesn't work because the whole idea of national heritage is that it is something which is common and which you recognize many different variants. You know, there are several other topics, activities that have been recognized, but they are all recognized with all their variations.
But can you just try to give a very small summary of how advanced the process is and what are the real chances that ayahuasca gets to be recognized as cultural heritage in Brazil?
As I was saying, there is all this problem, and the main problem at the moment is that people completely forgot about the Indians. They were only thinking about the urban use of ayahuasca, and now the several different Indian groups have come together and say, well, you can't forget about us, and we have our own uses and our own necessities and our own needs. You know, nowadays there are lots of Indian groups that travel around the country doing shamanic works and so on, and by the existing rules they are sort of outlawed because they do not belong to an established church. They don't have all the correct numbers, bureaucratic numbers to show people and so on. And they say, well, you're forgetting about us. So now, the Indian groups are spread around sort of an enormous territory, which is very difficult to reach. You have to go by canoe several hours or several days up a river to meet a particular group. So to consult each one of these groups to see exactly what they want, which is what is now being considered necessary, takes an awful long time and is very, very expensive. So at the moment, things are rather sort of, and Brazil's going through a terrific crisis, so things are more sort of fairly stationary at the moment.
Yeah, so just for you to be connected, just don't please start not saying that ayahuasca is cultural heritage in Brazil because you read or heard somewhere. This is a process that started since 2008, so it's almost a decade now, and it's still not recognized, and it's still going around in circles and still raising a lot of controversies. And we might have a positive ending or not. Peru has recognized ayahuasca as cultural heritage. Colombia has recognized in some parts, and laterally or indirectly in some ways, but in Brazil this is an ongoing discussion. And just to kind of wrap up, I'm just going to throw a very obvious question out there. That is the question that doesn't, that everybody repeats over and over again. And here with one of our pioneer founding fathers of anthropology of ayahuasca in Brazil. Is ayahuasca a drug, Edward?
Well, ayahuasca contains psychoactive elements. Obviously, from that point of view, it is a drug. But when people say drug, the common use of the word drug, in Portuguese you say droga, and the word droga has several different meanings. One of the meanings is this sort of drug from a pharmaceutical point of view. Another meaning is garbage. Another meaning is something that is very, very bad. And of course, there is the sort of standard view that people have of drugs as sort of malefic, evil entities that grab people and hook them and so on, as if the drug itself, the substance itself, was the agent. Mm-hmm. And we all know that it's humans that are agent, and that you must have a human using the drug in order to have some problem with the drug. And that view is still not very common in Brazil. So people still have this war on drugs mentality, and then they often think that ayahuasca is another drug. But obviously it isn't, because people have a religious view to ayahuasca. Can you say that the wine which is used in the Catholic Mass, is that a drug? Obviously it's not a drug. It is a ceremonial, very important element, which represents the blood of Christ, so it's different.
But regarding the ayahuasca field, that I was also, much of my education in the ayahuasca world has been in Brazil and in the ayahuasca churches, Santo Daime, UDV, Barquinha. Much of the followers of these groups don't want to engage in drug reform debates or think that we shouldn't compare ayahuasca to what drugs. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that it's a great mistake. The whole idea of drug reform, anti-prohibitionism is new in Brazil. That is why these groups still haven't sort of gotten on to the importance of the issue. And one must remember that religious groups are often quite conservative. And especially these traditional groups from the interior of Brazil that only recently have come into contact with this sort of modern, not civilization, the modern culture. Now only recently have they had access to television and internet and so on, although now they have. So they are still sort of rather backward in their views in many ways. And but whole Brazil is beginning to understand the importance of questioning this war on drugs mentality. And I believe that sooner or later these people understand that as long as you believe, as long as the government has in some kind of policy that certain substances can be forbidden, can be prohibited, and people can decide that substance is evil, that substance is dangerous, and that other one isn't. As long as you have that kind of arbitrary possibility, then ayahuasca continues to be in danger, because, as I say, the stigma continues, and Brazil is going through a very right-wing, conservative change, and anything can happen. Even ayahuasca can become forbidden once more.
Well, let me say that we in Chacruna Net are totally supportive of this view. We are anti-prohibitionists, we are for the drug reform movement, and we are for the regulation of psychedelics and other psychoactive substances. And I want to say also that at Chacruna Net, we're talking to the global sphere. to the global debate on the internet about psychedelics, but we're talking with an accent. We're talking from Brazil, we're talking from South America, we're talking from the global South. We want to bring outside views, we want to bring non-hegemonic views, we want to bring ground views, empirical views from people that are down in the field, that do constant field work, that have first-hand experiences. May I ask you, have you ever drunk ayahuasca, Edward MacRae?
Well, of course I have. I've been taking ayahuasca since 1987, I believe. And I'm still here.
And in very good shape, I must say. I have also been taking ayahuasca for 20 years. We're not doing a few interviews on ayahuasca. We're living the topic organically. So follow us on chacruna.net and check our beautiful view. Can you show us again? From the states of Minas Gerais, Belo Horizonte, Brazil. Keep on tuned, chacruna.net. And please read the article from Edward MacRae about the controversial topic of Santa Maria or cannabis that is posted in our website, along with many other good articles coming from really sound, grounded scientific research, anthropological research based on first-hand field work from the global South. Big hug from Brazil, and keep on following us.